lines to episode number 1 of Ice Cave Radio. Is that what this is all about now?
Yes and no. It is episode 32 of the show, or episode 1 of season 2.
Yeah, I guess we can kind of sort of approach it in that capacity. We took a little bit of a break. We had a week off. I was in New Zealand. You were busy. Doe was busy. It was kind of a hectic week for a lot of us. Ultimately, we cannot just skip 2 weeks in a row. That would be blasphemy. We also didn't want to. Like, as much as we love this show, sometimes life gets in the way. But here we are. And I suppose that we'll do the standard opener here, and then we'll get to a little bit of the name change. That could be kind of like a headline, but it is a podcast about Star Wars Unlimited, the card game, as well as every other Star Wars card game that we like, and any other Star Wars culture that we tend to dig into. Flake with Charmer, how are you, buddy?
Why would you ask me that question?
I know you've had a rough go. You've had a rough go.
I've had a rough couple of weeks, and I am currently unmedicated. So I will not answer this honestly, and I will say I am fantastic. But I am legitimately excited for a number of reasons. Some I can talk about, and some I cannot. Keeping it Star Wars related and things that I can talk about. The newest trailer for Bad Batch is out, and something that I'd been saying for a while is happening. I'd been saying for a while, man, I loved Asajj Ventress as a character. And now that we got live action Ahsoka, I really wanted her to come back. I think her arc is very riveting and engaging, and I just really liked her as a character. And I'd been kind of saying, if Darth Maul can get cut in half and come back, like, they need to bring back my Ventress. And then they teased it and confirmed it in the Bad Batch trailer. So not only does that mean I will get more Star Wars content with one of my favorite characters, but also that means potentially a couple of different versions of her in future sets, right? Like, I expected to get some version of her at one point or another, but now I'll get, the bounty hunter version and the, Sith version, and then whatever this new version is that looks really cool.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that. Like, I'm doing well there.
No, there's a lot of good stuff coming up here. But ultimately, we do have to get to the business. So, hey, this isn't my job. This is your job.
Well, so here's the thing. I don't know how to do this, and we didn't actually talk about this ahead of time. So,
I got it. It's
the cave poll of the week. Or is this when we debut the mascot?
No,
well,
we could because the video already played, and there was definitely a Wampa in there, and it's not like we don't acknowledge Wampas. Wampas are part of Star Wars lore, and they're an important element to everything. But our own mascot, which, you know what? We'll just do it right now with the magic of things. Beep. There he is. We are now Ice Cave Radio, and we'll dig into that a little bit after the poll. But if you notice, that isn't a Wampa. Even though his name is Wampo, he is Wampo, which also, as very astutely described by you, as being a very sad clown. No one wants Wampo at the party. No one wants to hire Wampo the clown, but we have Wampo the cave monster who is here. No horns, but he is listening to some sweet jams and some sweet beats, possibly listening to Ice Cave Radio because that's his environment.
Yeah. He is the abominable swoo man. Not snowman, swoo man for Star Wars Unlimited.
That's a good one. He is the abominable swoo man. I kind of like that. So meet Wampo, our ice cave dwelling sad monster who just wants to play cards. That's Wampo. But we are Ice Cave Radio, but we do have the cave poll. Not the Wampa cave poll, just the cave poll. So the cave poll is this week, which was from a couple weeks ago, but still, it still stands tall. It is, you're playing a Star Wars dating sim. Who do you try to woo? Who do you try to swoo or woo? Your options are Emperor Palpatine, Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, and C-3PO. So, Charmer, who did you decide that you wanted to woo of these four?
So I voted for C-3PO, and my reasoning was actually based in logic. But also, I'm going to be honest, I thought he was going to get like no votes. And so I was like, oh, I kind of feel bad for the fella. So we're going to throw in a vote there as well. But there was some logic. My thought process was C-3PO is a protocol droid trained in lots of languages, and that probably includes love languages. And I need somebody who can learn to appreciate me for me. Also, Emperor Palpatine is just not a trustworthy dude, and I don't feel like even in the dating game, he's going to be any better. So then, you've got the other two left, which are, of course, Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia. And the problem with dating either of them, like, don't get me wrong, fantastic characters, wonderful people, but and they'll be the first to tell you, you have to be careful when you're dating, because you might find out that you're their brother or sister. And so I just didn't want to risk it, right? I know I'm not related to C-3PO, so I don't need a Force ghost to later on tell me that one of them is my relative. So I went with C-3PO, the protocol droid.
See, that's the beauty of all this, because Ancestry.com or Ancestry.ca or whatever, that's a thing now. So, I mean, you could kind of circumvent that by slapping down like $50 and saying, hey, I kind of like you, Princess Leia. So we're going to do a little bit of
Now swab your cheek.
Yeah, exactly. That kiss, by the way, that was just to swab. Yeah, exactly. Then I walked away like, okay, take the saliva off. Send it immediately. I need to find out if there's a second date. I select, look, you're spot on. And part of this is the fact that there is a Star Trek Next Generation episode, I think in season 1, where Data and like Tasha Yar have a meaningful romantic relationship where he, if I remember the quote correctly, says that he is programmed in multiple styles of pleasure and such like that. Like he it's in his in his positronic net, like in his positronic brain. He knows how to make things happen. C-3PO might know the language, but God forbid it's a forbidden language that he can't speak.
But, and here was the other part of my thought process, because I thought this would come up. If he doesn't know it, I have confidence in Babu Frick to make it happen.
He's like the love guru. Babu Frick shows up. He's like, oh, yeah, butt touchy.
Babu Frick is the day job, but when you bring him these kinds of problems, he's Babu Freaky.
Oh. So Babu Frick is there. I would rather date Babu Frick, frankly.
Well, yeah, but he wasn't on the
No,
poll,
he was
so.
definitely, that would be too easy. Just Babu Frick, sex machine. I selected Princess Leia because not just because it's the easiest thing here. Partially it's because if it's Luke, I don't want to be like, but Uncle Owen, I don't want it. Like, I don't want to listen to that garbage all day long. Princess Leia is a strong-minded, independent, just get it done, ambitious person, and she fixed Han Solo. Like, the whole thing of like, I can fix him or I can fix her. She did it. Like, Han thought that he was the one who was going to just sort of pull the strings in that relationship. But as you see in the movies, as well as in the expanded canonical books, he basically he knows his place and she gets stuff done. And part of the appeal for me of being in a relationship is less decisions, frankly. I don't want to decide stuff. I have enough going on. So if Princess Leia is just there, I mean, short of just sort of laying my clothes out on the bed, but ultimately they pretty much wear the same thing day in, day out, so I don't think that's even a factor. But I mean, Princess Leia is a solid option for me. It's definitely a lot, not Luke.
Fantastic option. And let me also just say, filthy rich, right?
That
helps in the dating scene. But, you mentioned the outfits, and then I immediately, my mind started spiraling due to the lack of medication. And I was like, yeah, who has a ton of outfits, though? Princess Amidala, Queen Amidala.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was thinking, the two, arguably, the two most famous, women in Star Wars are Amidala and Leia, and they both are also filthy rich and come from royalty. And so really what I'm getting at here is, where is our like representation on the other end of the spectrum for the ladies here? The closest we have is like Jyn Erso. She's kind of like maybe a
Are you
Han
talking about poor,
Solo-ish.
like financially?
Yeah.
Well, what about
Yeah,
Rey? Rey was a scavenger on Jakku.
who ended up being
Right.
like,
But like
but so like I don't know that counts. Like that's still standard
Jyn,
whatever.
Jyn maybe
Jyn, and I said maybe because like her dad helped build the Death Star, and also even if you do accept her, well then they killed her off. So it's like where's my representation? That's what I'm saying here.
all right. So it's
I need the lady Han Solo.
it's not about like sex or gender at this point. It's about like socioeconomic positioning.
Well, yeah, that too.
Okay. Well, in that case, why don't you just date Unkar Plot?
Because I feel like he also has relatively more wealth than not in his station in that on that planet, right?
But you know what? When it comes to love, I just need one full portion, baby. One full portion. All right, so there you go. Let's give you the results before this comes way off the rails.
The results are shocking, by the way.
Oh, they are absolutely shocking. I mean, they're shocking to one degree, but I think that it's Princess Leia winning, I think, is not a shock to me. I think the fact that C-3PO was second place. So
second place.
Yes.
He got my pity vote, and he's second place.
All right, but it's by a chasm here. So it's Princess Leia wins with a clean 59% of the vote. So she wins outright, wins the majority. C-3PO is second place at 18%. Emperor Palpatine, for those who really want power, looks don't matter, it's about power. The same reason you'd like date Oprah is the reason you date Emperor Palpatine. It's power and influence. That's why 14.8%. Luke Skywalker, nobody wants the whiny farm boy. And I don't mind it because I think it's like if you date Luke Skywalker, you're just dating somebody who is just constantly whiny and unsatisfied and then because he goes through
you want to know, sorry, I don't mean to derail you mid-sentence, but you want to know what's actually wild? It's totally the whining. Because every time you hear any complaint about Luke, it's always whiny farm boy.
Yeah.
But the reality is he is a Southern accent and a cowboy hat away from being the other end of the spectrum. Like Luke could be Tatooine desert cowboy stud. But because he's whiny farm boy, he's never been able to escape that label.
Well, you know what? You put a cowboy hat and a vest on him. He's Owen Wilson from Night at the Museum. That's who he is.
I was going to say Daniel Craig from
Cowboys and Aliens. Yeah, that's a good one too. But let's just put it into perspective here. Can't you just be like, oh, but Uncle Owen, I want to go get some power converters. Wow. It's like that kind of thing. You know, like I don't want, like he's just there. I just picture him.
I don't know if I like your tone, Mr. Vader.
Yeah, exactly. He just goes ahead and just dunks 2 proton torpedoes, pulls up, sees the explosion. Wow. It's like, I don't know if I can get through that. Now that's in my head. And Biggs Darklighter is played by Luke Wilson. Oh no, Biggs. Yeah. Wow. Like, I know. Okay. All right. So there's your results for the cave poll of the week.
So just before we move on to the headlines here, because we have to, this is what happens when we take a week off. We have no emergency packs, no DOA to keep us on the rails.
Yeah, that's part of it.
You go to New Zealand and have a life-changing experience. Like
it was pretty good. I'm not going to lie. So for those who don't know, I was in New Zealand for about 8 or 9 days. There was the Flesh and Blood Celebrational Tournament, which was like a special invite to Auckland. We went to the most beautiful place I think I've ever been, which is Queenstown, New Zealand. We went there. The tournament was up a gondola on a mountaintop, which was unreal. And then it was back to Auckland, back to reality. Life-changing is, I mean, it was just kind of like not life-changing. It was more like, hey, this is what you could have. It was life-revealing to a degree. But I love Canada. It's just not, it's not New Zealand. But Star Wars Unlimited is here soon. You and I are going to
Less
get our
than 2
hands on
months
it
away.
as soon as it comes out. But let's talk a little bit about the headlines as we get through. And we do want to explain a little bit about what our rebranding is all about. So it's a long game move. And first of all, we appreciate the fact that everybody knows us as Wampa Radio, knows us as the Wampas. That's kind of what we are. And that is such a lovely consequence of the fact that our passion is so well received by you all out there, and we love it. The problem is that we didn't get in trouble. There's no one's breathing down our neck. However, Doa, Charmer, and myself got together and thought, hey, if we want to do merchandise like t-shirts, if we want to do game pieces and tokens and initiative coins, and we want to put our name on stuff, we want as little friction and as little, I don't know how to say it, Charmer, more like we don't want anybody to sort of have to have a second thought about any type of partnership related
Yeah.
things.
The way that I would word it is just that we didn't want to wait for the talk to try to even like have to navigate it, right? As you said, nobody has come to us and said, stop doing what you're doing. I would be shocked if the mouse even knows we exist. We're small fish in an absolutely massive pond in that regard. However, should the day ever come where, something happens, why wait till then and then navigate the water when we're still early enough now that we can just address any potential future problems? It's such a small move with such like big potential dividends as far as just making everything easy for all involved in the future that we just felt like this was the right move. And also in terms of like timing, not that I think like people are clamoring for it, but we have had quite a few listeners at least make jokes about like, when do I get my, Wampa Radio shirt? And then we were talking about it and we're like, well, technically we can't ever really do that. Like I had a couple made for us for like personal use, but that's not the same as selling them. And then once you start doing that's a whole different thing. And so we just felt like it was the right thing to do.
It's us covering our bases. It's us maintaining not like we have a bad relationship with anybody out there, but it's just more or less of like, hey, should certain things become an opportunity for us, we don't want to have any kind of issues wherein they're like, well, we don't know if this is okay, so we're not even going to go down that route. So we're just going to Ice Cave Radio. We've got our little abominable swoo man named Wampo. So Wampo was fine. It's WOMPO. That's it. He's just Wampo. So we could still be Wampas. We can call ourselves a bunch of Wampas. That's nothing wrong with that. It's better than calling us squid heads.
Or nerf herders.
Or nerf herders, yeah, or whatever else kind of derogatory Star Wars terms. Just a bunch of us just doing death sticks in the corner, calling each other squid heads. What's wrong with us? All right, so that is the most important part. Moving forward, we will be Ice Cave Radio. The program, the people, the passion remains unchanged. We are just Ice Cave Radio. Sounds good?
Sounds good to me.
Perfect. Well, it should.
I won't be the final judge of it, but yeah.
I'm like,
board.
if after weeks and weeks of deliberations and talking about this, you suddenly on the air says, you know what? No. I'd be like, well, that's
too bad.
Yeah, too bad. All right, let's get to some of the headlines. I think there's a whole bunch that we might as well just rocket through. There's a lot of other great content creators out there who have covered this kind of stuff, so we missed a week. We're just going to breeze through a lot of the headlines. Anything pop out to you, Charmer, as something to drop in right now?
I was going to say, like, the big takeaway for me was what we were originally intending to cover last week, the week that we missed, which was Fantasy Flight Games had their live stream where they talked about the beta version of the website's now live. And they talked about features that are currently live, such as the ability to build decks, et cetera. And there are tools there that you can kind of preview, like finding events. But I call it a beta version of the site because it's there functionally, but a lot of that stuff isn't like publicly live yet. So you can go there and do the like event finder, which is really important for organized play, but nothing's going to load because that part's not public yet. There's also some pretty cool features on there, like tracking cards from your collection. There was a mention that they didn't go into any details about on the live stream, but I felt like it was a pretty big deal, which was there's a confirmed multiplayer format for the game that they call Twin Suns.
Sounds like Two-Headed Giant to me.
Sounds like Two-Headed Giant, but nonetheless, I'm on board. Like, I already love it just based on the title. They also dropped some info, again, organized play related, which I think is just important to get the knowledge out in case you missed the stream or the announcement, which is card sleeves will be required for competitive events. They either have to be single color opaque or the GameGenic official Star Wars Unlimited ones. So just know that if you're going to events, if you're curious about participating in events from the judge side, they got some questions about a program. It is not released public yet, but it's coming. So just kind of stay tuned to their official channels in that regard. And that was the major part of like the website reveal and things like that.
Oh, a lot of cool stuff, in my opinion. And I think that having a very good home-based website that tracks, that not only is about deck building, card research, if you could find events, if you could keep track of your progress. One thing I like about Gem for Flesh and Blood is you can go back and see every single competitive event you've ever done, your individual games, the results, and all that stuff. I would love more from it, frankly. So I'm hoping that Star Wars U is going to have something out there that is very comprehensive, that's very extensive as well. Because I'm a achievement hunter to a degree. I mean, I want to know how much experience points I have, my record, my elo, where it went up, where it went down, and there's a lot of good things that are available, and people care about this stuff. One thing about sleeves, Charmer, a lot of people will be like, well, obviously you bring sleeves to a competitive event. However, I have been to a Magic event. I played in a standard Magic event tournament where I had to call a judge because my opponent was using different sleeves. Like, there was about 8 or 9 different colors and variations. And some of them were clear, some of them were red, some of them had designs. And I said, hey, I'm like, I don't know if this is legal. I'm like, I personally don't care because I don't care about the result of this game. I just want to play the game. But I don't want you to get in trouble, So maybe it's something before we start that you should address. And they're like, I've never had a problem with this before. And I was like, I absolutely call, because this is either your first tournament wherein that statement is correct, or no matter whoever else. And ultimately, I called the judge, and the judge's like, you have to like have other sleeves. And the dude's like, well, I don't have other sleeves. So the judge's like, well, you have to buy some then. And I was like, well, hold on. I said, I don't want the dude to be forced to pay money. Can he play with no sleeves as a result? And the guy's like, sure. And I was like, all right, if you're cool playing with no sleeves. And he's like, of course I'm not. I said, well, I don't know what to tell you, dude. I'm like, so the judge basically gave him the ultimatum of taking an L or taking them out of the sleeves. So he grumpily took the L. And I was like, well, we could play anyways if you want to play. I said, if the result's already, and I beat him anyways, but still. So the result was there. It was just one of those things where don't take it for granted that you need sleeves or that your opponent will have them.
And beyond that, so the other reason that I wanted to highlight it was specifically the rules around the sleeves, because there are a lot of games that just say like you have to have sleeves, but specifically it has to be opaque or the official Star Wars Unlimited ones. You can't show up with like custom sleeves. And I know that's a very common thing in other games, and that for their competitive events anyway will not be allowed.
So are you talking about even like some of those Dragon Shield ones that have designs on the back?
Yes, that's because there's when it comes to a competitive level event, right?
Yeah.
The concern is obviously that you could custom mark things if it's, patterns that only you're familiar with. So like those would be fine because they're single color opaque. But if you are somebody who's done the custom Dragon Shield sleeves, or you've got your lewd anime girls, which I know is a problem for communities in other places. I don't expect that in Star Wars, but again, a justifiable reason for I think why you want a rule like this in place.
We go. So here's oh no, that's not a sleeve. Never mind. Keep going.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to highlight that, right? And I think it makes sense when you're talking about competitive events. And obviously they talk about their 3 Cs. I don't think this is going to be a problem for just your casual, like weekly get together play. But if you're showing up to like one of their organized play premiere events, that is going to be the expectation, right?
Yeah.
So,
and that honestly is new to me. I don't think I've ever encountered that. However,
and you've played a lot of card games like me, and so while I don't disagree with the rule, it is different from other games, and so I wanted to make sure I said it. That live,
said,
right? Get it out there.
The cheapest sleeves are the opaque ones, ultimately. Yeah. I mean, I am lucky enough that I was briefly sponsored by BCW, and they sent me like a gigantic crate of sleeves. So I am not in needing for sleeves. If ever somebody's out there and you're going to the event I'm going to and you do not have sleeves, send me a message. I will give you sleeves. No cost, no nothing, no expectation. They're just yours. I just want to make sure that people are set up.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that. That's what actually started me down this whole train of thought of like, I really wanted to make sure I put an emphasis on this, because I normally carry extra sleeves at any event I go to. But my standard right now for like my extra sleeves I have a bunch of chain sleeves from Flesh and Blood, because I used to play chain and now he's living legend. So I was like, all right, well, those will just become my like go-to backup sleeves or loaner sleeves. I've loaned them. I loaned them to Peter at the Invitational, right? So I couldn't do that at a Star Wars event. I would have to have a different set of loaner sleeves, because those are not opaque and not official Star Wars ones. So that's why I'm mentioning it. It's one of those things you don't even think of, but it would matter at a competitive event. If
you want to buy good sleeves, friends, I highly recommend. My favorite ones are the BCW Elite 2s. And I'm no longer sponsored by BCW. I am merely saying that this happens to be my favorite sleeve. Dragon Shield sleeves are good, but I think the BCW Elite 2s are very durable. They slide well. The edges don't wear. And I have been basically exclusively using BCW Elite 2s, which I don't think are all that expensive. I think they're like $10 for 100 or something like that, or like $8 or $9, which
I was gonna say, I think they're like 8.
Yeah,
I don't even think 10.
I'm thinking Canadian. That's why. So I think they're like
yeah.
So I would highly recommend. They're very good value, and me playing like I'm going to Hartford. You're going to Hartford. Are you going to Hartford?
Probably not.
Okay, so
I'm very sad.
I'm going to a major tournament next weekend in Hartford. I will be bringing Elite 2 sleeves because they're just good, and they're opaque, no designs. That's how I prefer it. All right, that does it for headlines. Let's jump into a slew of spoiler cards, and I think that the majority of this show is going to be just jamming through the spoilers. We could talk a little bit more about, I think, the rebranding of the show here, but there's nothing really more to talk about.
Well, there's nothing more to directly talk about, but this is where I will pose a question to the audience, or I guess more like make a request of the audience, which is, let us know what you think, right? This is early enough where if you want to give us feedback, or if there are other things you want to see now that we are going through this. So if you are one of those people who are like, yeah, I would have like used a shirt or a playmat or whatever, we would love to know that. It's not really been a focus of ours in the past because of stuff like this, but now that we're making the move, and now is the time to let us know.
Now's the time. All right, let's get to these spoilers. And the first one is an event. It is a 3-cost double aggression aspect. It's called Rallying Cry. It is a tactic charmer. It says each friendly unit gains raid 2 this phase. Again, raid being, if it's raid 2, everybody gets +2/+0 while attacking. Again, aggression, you need to pay for it because it's double aggro in terms of the aspect, but this is one of those nasty pieces. This is a trooper deck specialization, in my opinion. You have a bunch of little dudes, you jam this card, and suddenly you are punching way above your weight. And I think that this card is pretty good. I hate double aspect cards. It feels so limiting. And I'm really trying to figure out, maybe if this is in a trooper deck, are you willing to pay 5 for this? Or are you just going double aggression as an aspect combo?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I think that in a Rebel trooper deck, going double aggression is fine. Originally, last week, because of the website announcement, Doa and I were going to showcase the deck builder on the official website, just so that we could also share some decks that we've been brewing with the current revealed card pools. And it just so happens that I have a aggressive Sabine deck that is double aggression built. That being said, I'll also share that it's still not running Rallying Cry in the current iteration because this is one of those cards that I think is in a weird spot. It feels better in Limited than it does in Constructed, but it also feels more limiting in Limited because of the double aggression. And the other side of this is because of the back and forth nature of this game, there is a window of opportunity for your opponent to disrupt this. So it's just like you were saying, right? You could have 3 dudes on the board and you want to play this and then attack with them. So you play this, but then if they play something that destroys, multiple units of yours, then you're going to get almost no return on your investment, right? You're going to lose your units and the tempo that you sacrificed to try to make this play. So it has a lot of good potential, but it's a very niche application because you have to find the right window to do it safely and effectively.
Yeah, I mean, remember that card in Hearthstone? It's the Shaman card. All of your units get +3/+0. Or I think it's like, is it Force of Nature, Savage Roar?
Oh, yeah. There's the Druid.
There's the Druid one as well. That's kind of, it feels like a combo in that regard. Like, I think what we're missing, honestly, Charmer, is like you've said this a bunch of times, is like a 3 or 4 cost card that's like make 3 1/1s, like token dudes on the board. You need to swarm the board. And what's tough for this is that this card is going to feel so like meh if you do not have like lethal potential. If you're not putting the pressure on your opponent to either bring him down to close to lethal. I'm really hard pressed about this card, but I'm so frequently wrong about evaluating aggro cards.
So here's my concern with even like that train of thought, because I started with that. Like, if there's an easy way to just like make a bunch of tokens or whatever, then maybe I see the value here, right? But this only provides raid. It doesn't provide additional health. So if you've got, let's like, again, say 3 weenies, right? You've got 3, 2/2s on the board that you're trying to raid to and essentially double your damage for the turn. The problem is, it's not like Hearthstone where I get to play all my cards and do all my things because it's my turn. So instead, it's you play Rallying Cry, and then me as the control player, I say, all right, I'm going to play Overwhelming Barrage, give my biggest unit +2/+2, and then divide its damage amongst your units. Oh, so your board is wiped. Like, I've nullified all of your units and the tempo you sacrificed to try to go for that damage shot. So you can get value out of it, but you have to almost get your opponent to overexert on their end first, which also means having a wide board that you've not attacked with yet, and then also still having the resources to still Rallying Cry. So it's really just about like navigating the turn structure that I struggle with this card right now.
All right, let's move on. We've got a really cool card. Just an interesting type of unit, but yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Occupier Siege Tank. This is a 5-cost ground unit. Just aggression and only 1 aggression aspect, so just solo aggression. It's a 5/4 Imperial Vehicle tank, and it has grit. So if you don't remember, it gets +1/+0 for each damage counter on it. So it's a 5/4 for 5, but theoretically, this could be as big as like an 8/1 if you get some damage on it. And that, wouldn't necessarily be the worst thing in the world, but it's a common. It has, I think, some potential in limited. I think that you're a little bit in a weird spot anytime I see a unit with grit that also has less health than it does attack already. It feels like it's competing with itself for what it wants to do. Like, that's the part that stands out to me.
Yeah, 5/4 for 5. The stat line is meh. Grit on a 4 body is kind of like it's like 4 is the bare minimum that I would really consider for a grit unit to be very good. It's just one of those things, the more you poke it, the angrier it gets, which ultimately, I think as a common, this is an okay draft card.
Yeah, it's 100% an okay draft card. The only thing that I take away from this, because again, I like to talk about cards that I earmark for later, is it is a tank. And so theoretically, normally when you think about tanks, you think about things that are very hard to kill. And so maybe in a future set way down the line, maybe we get a card that says like your tank becomes, almost unkillable, right? It gets a big bonus to health, or maybe it gets health and shielded, or whatever the case may be. And then suddenly this becomes an attractive option for that upgrade. Like this is one of those spots where I think the keywords, or not keywords, excuse me, the tags, right? Imperial vehicle tank could be relevant down the line. They just don't feel relevant right now.
Correct. This is a base set, right? With sort of how you want to evaluate it, it's still kind of like a base set. This is the building blocks for bigger, better things down the line. Next up, we've got another event. This one is a 2-cost Spectre event called Carabast. It is an aggression and heroism card, and it says, a friendly unit deals damage to an enemy unit equal to the amount of damage on the friendly unit plus 1. So at its base, it's 1 damage, because if there's 0 damage on something, 0 plus 1. Quick maths. That's where we go. Man's not hot, but a friendly unit deals damage to an enemy unit equal to the damage. So fills in with the grit style stuff. Like, something's angry, it could still deal damage, but it could also just kind of go ahead and play Carabast to sort of get rid of something. But again, what is the range of this? This is where you need some big booty witches on the board in order to go ahead and accumulate a whole lot of spanking going on so that you can Carabast.
Spoiling Witches of Dathomir early? Big booty Witches of Dathomir?
The big booty witches? Yeah. Big booty witches, we got big booty witches. Woo! No? That's an old school YouTuber. All right. That said, I think it's okay. I think that if you look historically at card games and different ideologies, I think specifically about Magic, when it comes to direct removal, a lot of them have sort of this thematic ideology to it. For example, green is always one unit fights another or deals its strength to another. Black is just straight up point, click, delete. Red is deal a specific number of damage. White is exile and blue is bounce. That's kind of how they have their different versions of removal. And I feel like this is just another. It's kind of like, all right, well, you got something that's hurting, let it hurt back.
Yeah, I like this for a couple of reasons. First, the flavor. Carabast, if you're a fan of Rebels like me, like you probably sometimes say it at home. My kids get a chuckle out of it because it's like to them it's a curse word they're allowed to say.
It's like frack
yeah. From Looney Tunes and yeah. But I also appreciate that this is a Spectre card. So when you think about the power level of this, it's not necessarily any more powerful than some of the other direct damage removal cards we've seen, but the flexibility of being the Spectre kind of tribal here so that you can put it in your Hera decks, I think gives it some additional value. The artwork features Zeb, and I think that's also fitting because this card pairs very well with the unit Zeb and is also in the exact same aspects. So the idea is like you can play your Zeb, he swings and removes one unit, then his ability triggers potentially, removes another unit, and then for the low cost of 2, now you're going to make use of the damage counters that were on your Zeb to blow up a third unit, and now maybe you're back in the game, right? So I do like that. There's also one other use for this that I'm just going to say we're going to talk about a few reveals down, because this card combos very well with a new leader that we're going to talk about later.
Yeah, we'll get to that, but let's move on because we got a bunch to do.
Yeah, we have a bunch.
I like this next card.
Yeah, the next card is Alliance Dispatcher. This is a 1-cost ground unit in Heroism and Command. It is a 1/2 Rebel, and the text says, as an action, you can exhaust it to play a unit from your hand. It costs 1 less. So these are your Llanowar Rebels.
Hold on a second. Yes, that's a very good terminology. If you don't know what a Llanowar Elf is, I think it's one of the most reprinted cards in all of Magic. It's basically they're called mana dorks. They're just units that provide extra resources, which this systematically does. It just cheapens a card in your hand. Here's the deal. There was a nice little conversation that is now 2 weeks old because I was away, and I just kind of dipped my toe into it. When we revealed Chopper, one of the evaluations of it was that a 1/3 stat line for a 1-drop was garbage, or was not great or bad. And I have to ask, what the hell do you want from a one drop from a stat line? 4 points of stats for a one drop is pretty good. And I understand what the conversation was, etc. And I thought that the response to Chopper was a lot more underwhelming than I suspected it was, because I think you and I and possibly Doa also have that card as pretty high. Like, I think it's a pretty good card. A lot of people were really not impressed with it. And I'm willing to see how it goes. I'm not saying that we are right and you're wrong or vice versa, because we haven't seen the card in action. But a 1-2 stat line for this one drop, I'm like, yeah, that's fine. That's perfectly fine, because for what this does, it's going to the way that people evaluate cards to a degree, I think, are missing some of the point, because when it comes to this 1-2 drop, this is a high value priority. So you are buying an action turn from your opponent and saving your health total in the same regard. If this eats a swing of an opponent's unit, it weakens that unit, it saves you the damage you would have absorbed, and it buys the action point from them. So once again, just in general, Heroism Command is all about that ramp. It's all about getting big things on the board early and commanding the board. You want to have your big boys out before your opponents drops their big girls, and that's kind of where we're at. And Alliance Dispatcher, DJ Death Star, all these types of dudes are all there to do the same thing, which is get you to an end game as fast as possible. I like this card.
I think just at a minimum, the card is fun, because when it hits the table, statistically, it might be underwhelming, right? The problem with a 1-2, so the reason I like Chopper is 3 is a break point. There's a lot of 2 drops that swing for 2. So yes, he only has the 1 attack, but it also means it's going to be an attack into him and then something else to finish him off. Your trade-off here is this obviously just loses that one, trade-off with the 1-2, and it also means you have to like prioritize it. So I think the issue with a card like this is I can play it turn 1, and then if my opponent plays like a 2-2 for turn 1, and then we go to the second turn, if I don't use him right away, they're just going to eat it, and I didn't get value. Like that's the real concern. Unlike the Mana Dorks in Magic, that they just hang out, they can't be attacked directly, so they require some other interaction. This is at risk, and I think that is a legitimate concern here. But that being said, when it is on the board, it does create that decision tension for both players, which is, do I need to use it right away to make sure I get value? And if I'm the opponent, do I need to attack it? Because if not, like, what is it that they could ramp out? What is it that I'm afraid of? Maybe I don't care. Maybe I still want to race the base anyway and just ignore it, right? There's interesting decisions that are made. And so to me, that's what makes the card fun. Even if it might not end up being terribly powerful in the long run, especially as we get more sets, I like the decisions it forces players to make.
That's again, I just want people to know that I'm not saying this card is amazing from a gameplay perspective. I just like the card because I'm a ramp control side player. I like getting big stuff on the board fast, and this kind of plays into it. Will it make a cut of a deck? I'm not sure. I still want to play test around and do some stuff, but for now, Alliance Dispatcher. I like the artwork because it looks like he's training the poor Rhodian. And the Rhodian is there on his first day, and the guy's like, okay, so when you see this, make sure you call this number, but only if it's this. But don't call the number between these hours, and also, if your supervisor is that guy, you shouldn't call the number, you should be going to your supervisor. And also, if that radar shows 2 or less blips, don't call, but always call when this is on. Do you got that? And the Rhodian's like,
so...
Uta Guta?
Not to derail us any further, but what this actually reminds me of is when I used to do dispatch and lean in 911 for a local police department. There was a time when I received a phone call from somebody that was claiming they had been kidnapped. And obviously you take those very seriously. So then, a shift supervisor came in to listen in, right? And the person who was claiming that they had been kidnapped then started describing their captors and how most of them were wearing white and that they were currently hiding in a closet. And then we ended up figuring out it was somebody at a local community mental health facility that was hiding from the doctors. But this scene was basically like me sitting at the desk and then the supervisor taking over.
I just picture I'm in an emergency. I pick up my phone. I dial 911. You answer, and I'll be like, "Help! I'm trapped in a freezer." And you'd be like, "Okay, great icebreaker. I just need you to chill out for a second, okay?" And I'll be like, "Mother of God," and I would just hang up on you.
Fun other true story. My mother called 911 to report an altercation that was happening at a public park, right? So she calls 911 and gets me. And so 911, what's your emergency? And she goes, "Oh, Darick?" And it's like, "Yeah, what's the emergency?" And she goes, "I don't want to bother you at work," and hung up on me.
That is such a motherly thing to do.
So mom, dude. So I had to call her back and like, "No, you need to report it. What's going on?"
Oh my God. Ma'am, where are you? Spell your name. Oh, that's funny. All right, let's go to the next one. Next one is Heroism, a 4-drop ground unit called Regional Sympathizers. It is a 3/4 rebel unit with Restore 2 baked in. It's a fun little card. I think that this card is going to be a slightly above average draft card, I believe. What I like is that they're just these regional sympathizers are purely Tokyo drifting the crap out of wherever the hell they are, which looks so dangerous that I can understand why you would need Restore 2 because they are clearly reckless.
Yes, I mean the art shows exactly how reckless they are. So naturally, they're gonna need some help. When this card was first revealed, I was like, "Yeah, it's great for a common, like has some limited use or whatever." After I've had time to marinate on it, I actually think my views on this has improved since last week. Just because as I start going through all of the cards that have been revealed so far, there is not nearly as many cards with Restore as I was originally anticipating. And so at least in a set 1 world, there is a chance that this could like make the cut in certain lists, even if it's like only as a 1 or a 2 of, just to kind of bolster your ways to get that health back.
I think you're right. What I love about this first set is coming from other card games that have now had so much time to breathe, power creep, etc. It's nice to sort of be grounded back to those initial power levels and power points, wherein we are in a situation now where maybe this is like we've seen the Wampa, like it's the Chillwind Yeti of Hearthstone. That card was just a vanilla 4/5 for 4 that people played because the stat line was right at that. It's what it traded with, what people were playing on turn 3, and how you respond on turn 4. It just made sense, and that might fit in. So I kind of like that as for regional sympathizers. Ooh, this is the card I think you were talking about, right? So
this is the card, yeah.
Make it happen.
I love so much about this card. I got so excited. All right,
do it.
We got a new leader. It's a rare leader. It's in the aspects that I was waiting for the next reveal for, which is Heroism and Vigilance, because I've been trying to theorycraft some control in the force control spectrum here. So we got Chirrut Imwe. That's right, Mr. I am one with the force, and that is literally the kind of subtitle for this leader, one with the force. I love it. So the action when it's your leader is give a unit +0/+2 for this phase, which is very interesting to me. And now I'm going to wait for like the comprehensive rules because I want to know how health totals work when your phase ends, because this has the potential to keep a unit alive long enough for you to get value out of it. But I think that then when the phase ends, like when you're going through resolution, if it has enough damage on it, it's still likely going to die, right? So the value is going to be in like extending the presence of units that you want to get an activation or an attack with, potentially, which is interesting. However, the other side of him as a unit is where things get spicy. So as a unit, so he's a 5 cost or your epic action when you have 5 resources, has a 3/5 stat line and has the rebel tag as well as the force tag. And I adore this because this is our first force unit that's not a Jedi, right? They just gave him, hey, we know you're one with the force, buddy. You get it. Even if you're not a Jedi, you're force rebel. And then the text says during the action phase, this unit isn't defeated by having no remaining HP. During the regroup phase, if he has no remaining HP, defeat him. So in other words, while you are in the midst of a turn and you're doing your back and forth, he could have 10 damage counters on him and he's still there. And so that's why I was kind of hinting with Karabast earlier that, hey, there's a unit that works really well with that, because normally the kind of top end, right? The dream scenarios for Karabast are either you have to have a unit with an insane number of health and then it becomes a very cost effective, like I pay 2 to nuke your giant unit. Or in this case, you could just have a guy who doesn't die from damage. And I also really like this because if you're playing Vigilance, there's probably a lot of tools in your arsenal for healing, whether it's your base or your units. And he threatens situations where he can take enough damage where he'd be defeated at the end of the turn. But if you're very good at managing your action economy, you can wait till your opponent passes like to get the initiative, and then you can play your heal to pull those counters off and he sticks around. And there's nothing they can do about it.
Okay, so here's the deal. First of all, it's just... Okay, so I want to just go back to what you're talking about, like the comprehensive rules and such. And the reason we're talking about this is because let's say, you give something plus... It has a 1/1 stat line. You give it +2 or +0/+2. It takes 1 damage. At the end of the turn, it loses the +0/+2. Does it die outright? My suspicion is yes. However, there are other games that doesn't happen. For example, Hearthstone is another one where at the end of the turn, any damage above and beyond the buffs that wear off, it falls down to whatever the lowest it could possibly be without it dying. So it'll drop down to 1. Same thing when something is buffed and you silence it or whatever, it'll go down to the lowest. That's just the way it goes. The other part about this is just this dude being like a pincushion for your own self-wounding effects just to Karabast something is kind of funny. I think that's cool. But also, how about this? What if you just slap some entrench on this dude? You entrench it on a turn where you just don't want to die because it sits there and it'll take an absolute pounding by everything that's on the board. And then, unless they have Overwhelm or they have Overrun or whatever it's called, then it's just this impenetrable brick wall. Is it not? Like, if you entrench this?
No. So entrench is the one where it gets the big boost in stats, but it can't attack bases.
Sorry.
What you're talking about is Protector. And that was what I was going to circle back to, because we had that discussion when we first talked about Protector after it was revealed. Yes, and we had that discourse about how, hey, Protector feels weird. It's a double Vigilance card, and it's only +1/+1 and gains Sentinel. And we were comparing that to some of the other upgrades, and we were like, hey, I don't know. And I remember saying, like, well, maybe there's a reason that Sentinel is just prioritized more than the others. And it turns out that reason is this leader, because, as you said, slapping Sentinel on this guy...
That was it. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, is a house. And so if you have scenarios where, as I said, you could slap Protector on him and then just have ways to heal the damage off of him after your opponent has passed to the turn, then you just have a wall on the ground. It's absolutely massive. Now, obviously, there are other ways to defeat him. There are things like Takedown, right? That's going to be all that more impactful in these matchups. But if you're talking about just straight damage or attacking, he is a house. I love everything about this leader.
I agree, and I think that you need it's a card or a leader that needs helping, but the potential is there. Like you said, nothing's going to frustrate your opponent more than dropping Protector on this. Maybe you drop Entrench on it, and you just have a series of cards that heal him at the end of the turn. Like you mentioned, you don't even need initiative to a degree. If you just have last action and say, okay, heal whatever, he's now back down to 1 health, but he's still alive. So
right, you could be packing, Surgical Droid, which is also in Vigilance. If he's got the Protector, so he's already got Sentinel, right? Your droid is safe, and then you can just let him take all the damage, and then to end your turn, you're like, all right, well, I'll attack with the Surgical Droid and pull 2 damage off of him, and suddenly he's back to being fine. Similarly, the other card, the reason that I've been eyeing this aspect leader combo for a while was I've been trying to figure out, is there enough in set 1 where you can reliably build a good control deck that is just Vigilance and Heroism and have it also be Force-centric? I'm talking your Kanan, your Obi-Wan, your Lukes, etc. And the reason I've been looking at that is because I think that the actual legendary card Vigilance is very strong, but also it binds all things. When you're talking about Force users, is a hell of a card. So if you're not remembering, that's the 2-cost event. It's Force, and it says you heal up to 3 damage from a unit. And if you control a Force unit, you may deal that much damage to another unit. So it turns out if you've got a Force unit, Chirrut, and you want to pull some damage counters off him to end your turn, you can also then nuke one of their units as well. It's just all the pieces came together for me when I saw this leader, and it doesn't hurt that it's also one of the coolest characters in Rogue One.
But it is a best 2 out of 3 competitive, and there will be sideboards, so there's going to be a lot of people that are going to have that little magic bullet for this dude, because honestly, I think you're exactly right. I think that seeing these cards come out has now leaned me a little bit more towards the fact that double aspect decks are going to be competitive. I thought that it would just be you pay over the top for certain things, or you always have to have triple aspect. It was just the way. But I think that the way that you're talking about this and the cards and how they're coalescing here, there's something there, and I'm all for it. So I'm excited to see what you brew, Charmer, and for me to pack Takedown in my deck, in my sideboard. I'll pay over the top. All right, let's move on to another Flake card for sure. This is Reinforcement Walker, an 8-drop command aspect ground unit. It has a 6/9 body. It's a vehicle. It's a Walker Texas Ranger. It says, when played or on attack, look at the top card of your deck. Either draw that card or discard it and heal 3 damage from your base. So, I want to just clarify. You either draw the card, that's option A, or option B is you discard it and heal 3, right? You're not drawing and healing 3 because that would be unreal.
Correct. So your choices are you either draw that card or you can discard it to heal 3. So this is an uncommon. I think that's important because I just want to say that I love this card for limited. If you're looking for like a top end in command stabilizer, this is big enough that it's going to be hard to kill, but also the reusable every time I attack with it, but also I get the value once when I play it, because that's usually one of the drawbacks of your really big units is like you play it and then you don't get the immediate value and maybe it gets bounced or removed, right? This, you even get it on play. So if you're trying to stabilize and heal and you're playing that late game or that ramp, this does that for you. Like, I actually really like this card.
Well, so I want to give thanks to Tom and Taha for revealing this one, but you're right, because when you play it, especially in the late game, you don't want to be drawing like 1-drops or 2-drops or non-impactful cards at that juncture in the game. You look at the top card and it's like your dispatcher or something. Even if you have full health, you're dunking that card. You're saying goodbye. Like, you do not want to draw into that.
Well, so the option is when you play or attack and you reveal that card, you either discard it immediately and gain 3, or it just goes into your hand. So either way, you're not drawing it as part of your next turn. You're furthering like your dig into your deck.
Oh, right. You're right.
Full health, you would still take it anyway.
I think, yeah. Okay. Then you're right.
It's just that reusable pull 3 off your base that I think is really important, because this is only in command. So up until this point, a lot of your like self-healing stuff for your base has been strictly in Vigilance. A lot of your restore stuff is there. And so this being just command, single aspect, and it's got a way to start pulling counters off of your base, I think is really important.
I'm still on New Zealand time. The jet lag is still hitting me. I don't know why I didn't even fathom that. I forgot about the draw part. All right. That is Reinforcement Walker. I like this card. I like the stat line. I like that it's an uncommon. Let's move on, my friend.
Yeah. I mean, you might think that you are stabilizing the board when you play that giant walker, but I would caution you and say, don't get cocky, which just so happens to be the name of the next card. Don't Get Cocky is a 4-cost event in Cunning, and it is a gambit. And I love this card. It's a wall of text, so strap in, but I love everything about it. Choose a unit. One at a time, reveal cards from your deck until you choose to stop or have revealed 7 cards. If the combined cost of the revealed cards is 7 or less, deal that much damage to the chosen unit. Put the revealed cards on the bottom of your deck in a random order. So just to play this out, because I know that's a lot, you choose a unit and then you reveal the top card of your deck.
One at a
And
time.
whatever, yep, one at a time. So you reveal the top card, and then you see its cost. Let's say it's a 4. Now you are faced with the choice: do I reveal a second card because maybe 4 damage isn't what I was looking for, or do I say 4 is enough and I just deal the 4? And if you reveal a second card, let's say it's a 2, well, now you're dealing 6 damage, and you can keep doing this until you either reveal 7 cards total or you go above 7. So this is like blackjack, basically. Like, you're trying to get as much damage in without busting. And I love that. And I also love that it's interesting because this is removal that you would potentially consider in a control deck, but it also punishes you for having late game cards, right? Because if you've got, a walker that we were just talking about, that thing costs 8. That immediately, quote unquote, busts your don't get cocky. You don't get to deal any damage, right? So the existence of this poses a lot of deck building questions, and it's in cunning. And so I love everything about it.
The flavor of this card is so good, and of course you would be all over this because I watched you play blackjack. I stood there behind you for like 2 hours watching that Terminator of a dealer just absolutely eviscerate that whole table. It was uncanny how crazy that was. But don't get cocky is really cool, and that's what people need to understand. Is like, yeah, it's like, all right. I feel like in terms of cards that you need to, I say card counting, like, like we're from MIT here, but ultimately you need to know what's in your deck. You need to know what the top end is. If you're building a deck that's all 1, 2, 3 cost stuff, and maybe the top end is like, I got a few 4s in here, like, don't get cocky. You need to know that when the card you're peeling off the top, you need to be like, okay, I'm at 4, right? There's 6 cards total that have a 4 cost or greater. I'm holding one now. I just played it. I know that one's in the resource pile. So there's 4 landmines floating around. But otherwise, it's a surefire guarantee that I'm going to get 7. So you got to be a little bit confident, but don't get cocky.
Or, and I was waiting for you to make this connection. You can just know what the top card of your deck is because you're playing Grand Admiral Thrawn.
The top card
leader.
The top card, but you don't know the rest, and that's the problem.
But sometimes, like, you can hit that sweet spot, right? Like, if you know the top card is a 6, then you're like, yeah, let's just do this, baby.
Well, hold on a second. Does Grand Admiral Thrawn say? Let's see. What does Thrawn say?
When the action phase starts, you look at the top card of each player's deck.
Okay, because there is a hero, for example, in Flesh and Blood, like -IO, that says at any point you may look at the top card of your deck. So if that was the same text, you could be like, it says 1 at a time. You go 1, look at the top card. 2, look at the top. That's not the case. But you're right. You do get to know the first one, but you'll always know the first one because you're going to reveal it anyways. So I like the theme of this card. I would definitely not play it because I know my luck as well. And I don't get cocky. I get screwed. That's what happens.
Just to talk about other potential like fun brews that are out there. Obviously, we've got R2D2 who can reveal the top card of your deck to give you knowledge. The other one that jumps out, but this means you're triple aspect at that point, is Inferno 4 that has the when played and when defeated. You look at the top 2 and you can choose to put them back or on the bottom. And that's top 2. Right. So that really starts there. And this is just set 1. This is another one of those cards that I think is going to get more fun the more cards we get.
Cunning is going to be so cool. All right, let's move on, my friend. Very simple. Another generic card. It is Confiscate. I was waiting for a card like this. I think there's going to be a bunch that are very similar, very basic. 3 or 4 words on the card. It is Confiscate. It's an event. Law. I like that. Law is the type of card. 1 cost, no aspect, defeat and upgrade. Yes. Simple solution cards necessary. Cards like Disenchant in Magic. Cards that are like just defeat an enchantment, defeat an artifact, defeat of this, defeat of that. You need them. They don't all have to be flashy. They don't have to do a million things. For 1 cost, this feels like a limited card for sure, and you like it. I know that other cards exist that are like defeat all upgrades, but if you're not in that color scheme or you don't want to pay a penalty, this might just be it. There might be a deck out there that's like just you build a tank, you put a lightsaber on Luke, he goes haywire. If you just have Confiscate, you just defeat it for super cheap, and get back to work.
Hey, earlier, it's almost like I was going off about a leader with an upgrade being a problem. So all you have to do is get rid of the upgrade, and suddenly you don't have to worry about Sentinel anymore.
And this, the artwork on this is after the dude has finished his dispatcher class. He's like, screw this. He stole some of the muffins from the break room and filled his pockets with some like Nespresso pods. And he's like, I'm never coming back here anyways. And unfortunately, security caught him. So they're confiscating not a weapon. The upgrade, frankly, is the caffeine and the sugar rush that he was going to get. Poor Rodian. This poor guy.
Rodians get a rough one in the Star Wars universe pretty often.
They do. They do.
I mean, they really do.
All right, next one.
Right.
I like the next one because this is a character that I was a little bit iffy about when they first popped up in canon. But talk to us about the next one.
Okay, I'm with you. I was a little iffy when they popped up, but I kind of grew to love them, especially on my second rewatch of Rebels. And our character that we are talking about is Bendu. So this is a ground unit, 6 cost, double vigilance, 4/7 force creature. So earlier we got Sharut, and now we have him. So we have multiple units that exist that are force but not Jedi now. So 4/7 for 6 double vigilance, has Sentinel, but also on attack, the next non-heroism and non-villainy card you play this phase costs 2 less. So exactly what you were talking about before, Flake, where, hey, things are coalescing and I'm starting to see where a double aspect deck could be viable. And again, me saying I really want double vigilance with force to be a centerpiece of my deck building. They went and they dropped this right in my lap. I love so much about this.
The lore, the flavor of this card is spot on. If you know who this character is from Rebels, you know that he just kind of doesn't pick sides to a degree, right? He's just kind of what he is. Much like the Ents from Lord of the Rings. Yeah. They have decided that you are not orcs. But this guy has also decided that if you're not picking a side, if you're not heroism or villainy, he's going to help you out. He's going to be giving you a little bit of a discount on the attack. The more cards I see that are double aspect, the more I think that, I think double aspect decks are where it's at. And triple aspect decks might be, I don't want to say gimmicky, but they might be asking a lot. We'll see. I cannot wait for this game to be in everybody's hands, and tournaments are brewing. Oh God, we'll talk about it later. But
yeah. One last thing I want to point out to those who are listening, in case you're not thinking about this from a deck building standpoint, as you're brewing, you just have to remember that his ability also works on single aspect cards, right? So I know we're talking about double aspect from a deck building standpoint, but any cards that you're including, for example, that are just single aspect vigilance, would still get the discount. It just has to not be heroism, not be villainy. This also means for cards like Confiscate or some of these other generics that might be overcosted but are meant to fill in gaps when you are deck building or sideboarding, well, he hits those too. So you could attack with Bendu and then just play your Confiscate for no resources, which is fine.
I love free cards. I love that. All right, let's go to the next one. It's an event. It is a 4-cost heroism vigilance force event called The Force is With Me. So we had I am one with the Force. The Force is with me. And the artwork is spot on here. It says, choose a friendly unit and give 2 experience tokens to it. If you control a force unit, also give a shield token to the chosen unit. You may attack with the chosen unit. Okay, so the force, vigilance, the heroism part kind of straps in there as well. But let's make it +2/+2. Give it a shield so it's not taking any clap back. And then you just go and beat the crap out of something. But this was also revealed by Nelson All Over Cards. So thank you, Nelson. But yeah, I think that this card is going to be a real beater. And I think it's going to be a nasty reality that people are going to have that kind of fear of God in them where they're like, oh man, if he forces with me, like if he the forces with me on this card, I'm blown out here. So how do you play around it? How do we fix it? And sometimes you can't, but like ultimately, I think that the vigilance heroism aspect itself is one of those situations where if you leave something on the board, it's going to get out of control. And like that whole kind of combo to me feels about centering around heroes, centering around these one Voltron style dudes who are going to do a lot of the work. And like whether it's Luke or I don't know, Mace Windu or Yoda or whatever, it's just about these galactic heroes, these champions that you are doing a lot of the heavy lifting with. It's not about throwing in the grunts. It's not about, a bunch of Star Destroyers. It's one person that changes the narrative of the game and just sticks to the board and gets nasty. And that's what I love about this.
Yeah, the whole reason that I've been kind of in the past trying to force build, pun very intended, a force-centric heroism vigilance kind of control deck is because when I played the Elder Scrolls Legends, one of my favorite decks of all time to play was a sorcerer deck. That was the name of the like color combination. And the entire premise was you play units that had shields, and then instead of attacking your opponent directly, you use them to attack your opponent's units until eventually you have board control. At that point, like you keep killing their units, but you're survive because there's shields, and anything they play, you can just attack right into, right? They just fall behind. That's the similar play style here, but like kind of on steroids, because the reason I got so excited about this card, The Force is With Me, is that you get all of those bonuses and you get the shield, but you get to attack right away. And there are so many good vigilance, heroism units that give you stuff on attack, right? Kanan has his trigger where, you're doing the discard from their deck thing, but also healing your base. Yoda and Luke have restore, so you're again healing your base. There's Bendu that we just talked about, where his on attack is potentially making something else cost less this turn. So you're not just like, oh, I'm buffing my unit and I'm, doing the attack, but I'm also likely getting a very relevant on attack trigger as well. I just really like what this card does in this combination.
Let's move on, my friend. What else we got?
We are being escorted to our Escort Skiff card. This is a 4-cost ground unit in command, so just single aspect command. It has a 4/4 body. It is underworld, vehicle, and speeder for the tags, but it says while you control another command unit, this gains ambush, and this is in the common slot. I feel like this is going to be an all-star in limited. A 4/4 for 4 in a single aspect is fine, but being able to essentially just use this as removal while you're in command, right? Because that's what the ambush part is a pretty big deal.
I wholeheartedly agree. Any type of, anything that has a big attack value and survivability in limited is huge. Much like, for example, in Magic Limited, you find a 4/4 flyer with haste. You almost immediately, I don't want to say win the game, but you immediately put yourself in a position where you have a direct advantage. If the board is Steven, even from a perspective of attacking face with it, just the fact that you have something that can do damage and surprise your opponent that they are not accounting for, from a limited perspective, that is a massive, massive advantage because they are not prepared for that. They're prepared for what they see on the board, and they understand that things have summoning sickness, and you can't exactly just activate them and go nuts with them. But when you can, especially at the common slot, 4/4 for 4 that has that ability as single aspect, high value. I think that Escort Skiff is going to be, like you said, making waves in limited. I think that you're spot on about that. Okay, we've got 2 more, and I want to say, or do you have anything else that you want to throw in? Or
No.
Okay.
No.
So I'm gonna say that the next 2 cards are. Do you want to pronounce who they're from, and then I will correct you?
Geek because?
No, close. I could be wrong here, but to me it's Geek Becois, which is like Québécois, but
oh yeah, like de toi.
Yeah, Geek Becois, and I could be wrong about this. So Geek Becois, or if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly, I'm sorry. Mais sinon, si vous êtes de la belle province, bonjour et merci pour votre spoiler for this episode.
Carabast.
No. Damn it. Frack you. So say we all. All right, this one is a 5-cost ground unit. It is Villainy and Command. It is Rook, and Rook is Thrawn's assassin. Can you believe that? Can you believe it's Thrawn's assassin is here? It's a 3/6 Imperial.
This sounds like a spoiler. I didn't know Thrawn was assassinated. Oh, you mean his assassin. My bad.
Correct. He possesses Rook as an assassin, which is a unique card too. It's a rare. But it's shielded. It's a 3/6 shielded unit. When this unit deals combat damage to a non-leader unit while attacking, defeat that unit. What? Death Touch?
Yeah.
Do we have Death Touch?
Just assassination, basically. That's why he's Thrawn's assassin.
And it's got shield on it? However, keep in mind, it has to be the one attacking, not dealing damage. That is an important element here.
Yeah, it has to be attacking, not dealing damage, which means it doesn't trigger on blocks or if there are any other effects that say this unit deals damage, because that will be a distinction between that versus that you can attack with this unit, I'm sure, going forward in lots of different cases. But that being said, shielded and 6 health. And that 6 is a pretty important breakpoint when we're talking about cards, like Takedown, for example. I like this card. It's interesting because it's very threatening when it hits the board, but it's also riskier than it looks because it doesn't do anything when it hits the board either. So you give up an action to develop this, and then you also kind of have to pray that it survives long enough that you do get to do something, or you have to be playing it in a deck where you can try to get some immediate action from it, right? So if you're talking about a deck that might be focused on cards that have 3 or less power, for example, then maybe this gives you some additional stuff. Like, for example, Grand Inquisitor, right? The shielded doesn't matter for his deal 2 damage to it, and then you could turn around and attack with him right away.
I think that this card is a slam dunk, and I'll tell you why. Because a 5-drop 3/6 is so-so. It's the shielded aspect and the fact that when it attacks, whatever it's clashing into is going to get gobbled up and eaten. It's a very expendable unit, in my opinion, because in my opinion, I don't think you're getting additional value. And yes, it's going to take time to develop, and it's going to take time to swing with it. However, when this hits the board, it is a record scratch full stop for your opponent to reevaluate their position and what the hell they're going to do about it. Because if there's something on the board that they covet and this thing arrives, you are now saying, all right, shift gears. We're going to try to figure out how to deal with this. Or can we even deal with it? This is a card I feel like you might surprise onto your opponent, slow play it a little in a particular phase. You slow play it, and when they're maybe exhausted out of resources or they don't have the resources necessary, maybe you drop it on the board, and now they panic a little bit. Because maybe they make unreasonable trades into it in order to get the shield gone so that it can't just free trade into you. I think that this card is a mild panic situation for against a lot of decks.
Yeah. So there is one other thing that I want to mention about this, because there's been I think a healthy amount of discourse, and I think that's good for the game. That's why I say healthy, about whether or not some of the rare bases are even worth it, right? Is the 5 health worth the activation? This is a card that when I saw it, I immediately went, oh, that's why Energy Conversion Lab is a rare base -5 health. So if you're not familiar or you don't remember what that rare base did, it is the command base. So it already matches one of your aspects. And the epic action is you can play a unit that costs 6 or less from your hand and give it ambush for this phase. So the whole thing I was talking about like it doesn't do anything when it hits the board, you have to do the setup. Granted, it's an epic action. It's only once per game, but that might be all you need. That is a very big swing play.
Massive swing play. Absolutely. And like you, there's these bases that I too was thinking, I'm like, I might just want that 5 extra health. And it's worth evaluating, but this is the first type of peanut butter and jelly play that you're talking about, and I really, really like it. But I am all about Rook, and I think that Rook is pretty damn nasty, because if I can just instill the fear of Thrawn in my opponents by dropping this and completely changing their game plan, I'm all about it. Because the shielded aspect, the 6 butt on it, it's going to take some work to actually deal with this. Or it's fishing out a spot removal out of your opponent. If they've got a point click delete for this, fine. No problem. Because I'm probably playing 3 rooks, and I'll just drop another one next turn, and you have to panic about it again. That's from Geek Becois. Hopefully I'm pronouncing it right. We got one more.
All right, so the next one is another card that I love for a lot of flavor reasons, but also it kind of bothers me for flavor reasons. So without further ado, we finally get our Gamorrean Guards. This is a 4-cost ground unit in Cunning, single aspect Cunning, has a 4/4 body, only has the Underworld tag, and has the text that when you control another Cunning unit, this unit gains Sentinel. So from a flavor standpoint, I love the idea that when they're in a pair, now the art, I also love the art, by the way, and the art does feature 2 Gamorrean Guards, but I like the idea that you need more than one guard in place for them to be doing their job. And I love that, it's Underworld, it's a 4/4 for 4, it's part of what appears to be a cycle in the common slots, etc. It was weird to me that this was in Cunning, because I guess when I think of like Cunning characters,
no, they're
in
not
the Star Wars
Cunning
universe,
at all.
I don't think of Gamorrean Guards. I understand why it's here, because Jabba the Hutt is in Cunning, Boba Fett is in Cunning, all of that Jabba's Palace stuff is in there, and you want to have that theme. But I was just like, man, this is not a Cunning unit. In fact, it's so not Cunning that it needs a buddy to even do its job right.
Remember when you and I were in Columbus, I think it was, for the one of the events, I forgot which one it was. It was a Flesh and Blood event that we were there for. Oh, the Rumble. I think it was the Rumble. Yes.
Yeah, might have been.
Remember when you and I were going through the convention center trying to figure out how to get out of it and how to find the dinner place that we were supposed to go to and meet up with Majin and them? This is us. This artwork is us. It's us thinking that we got everything under control, that we're Cunning, but in reality, we had no clue where the hell we were going, what we were doing, but we looked confident doing it. And I think that's what the Gamorrean Guards are. That when you look at us, you're like, oh, they've got it under control. No, we don't. We totally did not have anything under control. My phone was dying. I had no signal. You were walking around looking for stuff. We were getting bad advice from people about where to go. That is the Gamorrean Guards. The question is, Charmer, are you the one with the vest, or are you full tarps off like the other dude?
If you saw my recent spoiler video for Flesh and Blood, I am clearly tarps off.
Tarps off indeed. All right.
For those who don't know the context, me and another podcast partner of mine did a spoiler reveal episode, and it featured me standing outside in negative 13-degree Fahrenheit weather, shirtless for a bit. So
it's pretty nasty. It's pretty
dedicated.
Nasty. Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. Those are the Gamorrean Guards. And that does it for the spoilers. So I think you're all caught up. Again, we're recording this on January 25th. This is currently 9 p.m. Eastern time. Anything after this, we are not responsible for. Main topic is basically, we kind of were all over the place, so we don't have a fully developed thing. We are going to get into, once all the cards are revealed, do a nice set breakdown for you, evaluate cards. We're still going to talk about ideologies of the decks. It's just our good friend Doa is traveling currently with baby, which is and he's rolling solo, so it's not an easy trek for him. So he's out there, out and about. So let's just again recap the fact that we are now Ice Cave Radio. Our mascot is an abominable swooman named Wampo, and we now have a cave pole, not a Wampa cave pole. We still have a bad feeling mailbag. We still got that. But again, the rebrand, we're thinking about the future. We're thinking about, people out there, tell us what you want. Do you want playmats? Do you want shirts? We have shirts. We're rocking some shirts, but we just want to make sure that we're not ruffling any feathers. Not that we were before, but just in case, down the line, we want to make sure that we are keeping the spirit of the show alive without sort of stepping on any proverbial toes that might hinder future opportunities. That's it, right?
Yeah, we have not officially in any capacity upset the Hutts, but we're learning the secret handshake just in case.
Correct. Now, if you'll notice, If it hasn't happened already, it probably has. But the Twitter is now Ice Cave Radio, at Ice Cave Radio. What's our new email address?
The email address is, well, first I want to say, if you are still trying to contact us for whatever reason, and you send it to the old one, I've already set up forwarding, so it will still get to us.
You can't give them a safety net like that. You have to.
Okay. Well, anyway,
you shouldn't have told them that.
But the point is, the new one is very simple. It is just icecaveradio@gmail.com.
Wonderful.
Very, very easy to remember. Just icecaveradio@gmail.com.
You might see. I don't know how this works with our RSS feeds and all that stuff, but we're going to be changing the name. And it's the same people, the same content, the same passion, just opening up future opportunities for us and for you. So when we're out there and we're like, hey, we have some playmats to give away, or we've got some tokens, some Ice Cave Radio tokens, we don't have to sort of potentially fight the mouse and desperately lose.
Yeah, I mean, you don't win that fight.
No, we might cheer it and stay alive until the end of the phase, but no, there will not be a Carabast.
No, I mean, we would just get waylaid. We wouldn't even be like defeated. We would just disappear.
Yeah. The mouse is the only one who can operate at instant speed. That's how it goes. So there you have it. That's the main topic. But we do have,
Hey,
yeah.
I was just about to say, what would you say if?
Oh, you're asking me now.
What would you say if you had a well-known and beloved podcast, and then suddenly you get a phone call from an unknown number, but you're curious, so you pick up the phone and you hear a mouse on the other end.
A mouth or a mouse?
A mouse.
I would imagine it's a mouth on the other end.
There's a mouth of a mouse. Or maybe it's not the mouse. Maybe the mouse doesn't even do his own dirty work. Maybe it's Goofy. Maybe he's just like, yuck, you're yucked. And
I just picture I answer the phone and it's like, see you in court. Ha-ha. I'd be like, damn it.
So anyway, what would you say to that?
I would say that I have a very bad feeling about this.
I got a bad feeling about this.
I have a bad feeling about this.
I've got a bad feeling about it.
All right, it is the bad feeling mailbag. That we still have. We still got that, and it's great.
Well, we're full of bad feelings. That's why we have Wampo, the sad clown, abominable swoo man.
Yeah, for sure.
Bonk.
Yeah, the little nose honk whenever something bad happens, and you're just like, that those hot dogs are filled with sodium and have absolutely no nutritional value. Wampo! Ho ho! Okay. I got an email to icecaveradio@gmail.com, and it is from Jason Rodney. Jason Rodney says, "Hello, guys. I have been trying to guess the number 6 leader as I am thinking about something has dawned on me. Why is Mace Windu, God damn it. Again, that is Doa, the ghost of Doa, just infiltrating my bones here. Why is Mace Windu a ground unit? Most of the cards are around A New Hope era. Then it comes to me. Is this a tell? Did Mace survive the battle with the Emperor? By the way, I believe the next leader is Darth Maul. What are your thoughts? Thanks for reading." Thank you, Jason. So, why is Mace Windu a ground unit? I mean, he got flung out of a window, making him a space unit or a air unit to a degree. I mean, he's a Jedi, so I'm going to give you the spot-on response here, which is a Jedi is a ground unit, and that's what he does. But do you want to dig into all the speculation about everything after that?
So, yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things here. One, I think the question is more so that a lot of the other characters seem to be from a very specific era when we talk about this set. And so seeing Mace Windu, I think our friend Jason here is asking, does this mean that Mace survived to that era? And this is something I've joked about for a long time because, again, I keep going back to if Darth Maul can get cut in half and come back, anybody can. And I like Mace Windu. I would like to see more Mace Windu. And there's also that very important line when Yoda disappears and, they're telling the Emperor, well, he must be dead. And he says, if there's no body, then he's not dead. And we never got to see Mace's body. So in my mind, he's still out there somewhere. But he's in this set because I think that they wanted to include reminders of the other eras. Even though this is kind of era focused right now, they wanted reminders from the other eras to let you know that, one, not every set will just always be from a specific era, and two, we're going to cover those other ones in the future. That's why we see art from prequels on Vigilance and some of those other cards, but that's also why we see Count Dooku, right? It's not just Mace Windu. We do have other ground units and other characters from different eras, even in set one. So I think that's why. But I'm with you. In my mind, Mace did survive. And you can't tell me otherwise until you show me a body.
Look, and this is the thing, and it's a standard, movie trope or TV show trope. Unless you see a body, you don't know. It's the standard comic book, is that nobody stays dead except Uncle Ben. That is a comic book move, and I think that's the only one that's really stayed true to it. Beyond that, is he alive? I think if anybody could be alive, it's him. I think that flinging him out of a window is by no means a way to kill him. I think that he's also wise enough wherein if he got flung out of a window, knowing that the rest of everything has gone, Pete Tong on this and it's all crazy, I think the move you do for Mace Windu is you hide. You kind of connect with trusted sources. You gather yourself, and then you form some sort of resistance to it. You start putting the groundwork for a rebellion, for that kind of thing. I would not be surprised, honestly, if he was... I mean, we've seen Rebels, and we've seen all that, but I honestly would not be surprised if there was some kind of story arc. And keep in mind, also, I think that Marvel has honestly just announced Mace Windu #1. He's going to get his own comic book series, which is canon. So we might find out what the hell happens. I would not be surprised if that comic book series is a lot of the preamble, a lot of the side missions that were going on. But if it's like a 20 or 30 issue run, I would also not be surprised if issues like 27 through 30 are what happens when he confronts the Emperor, and then what happens after, and you're going to find out he's alive. I think that they wouldn't... I don't think they would put that comic book if there wasn't a gigantic reveal. But again, if there's anybody who can do it, it's him.
We're already way off the rails for the show anyway. So I would love to see a story, and I've long said this, that you got to put yourself in Mace's shoes, right? He gets flung out of a window, taken by surprise. They didn't think any Sith was present. Turns out there was one of the most powerful ones right under their nose the whole time. Anakin had just been forced on the council, so you start second guessing that. Is he in on it or not? And then if you don't know who you can trust, I think the move is to go into exile. And I would love to see a story where Mace almost is doing the Star Wars version of the trope that we've seen other shows do, based on that very famous story of a Japanese soldier during World War II that didn't know the war had ended for 30 years. I would love to see a story where Mace Windu is in self-exile, and he was so cut off out of not being able to trust anyone that he doesn't even know there was a rebellion. He's just thinking the worst. And then through the Force, somebody connects with him, and that explains why he was missing through Rebels and whatever. Well, I think that has potential.
Think about it this way. I mean, Obi-Wan goes to Tatooine. He's not shrouded in, for example, Yoda goes to Dagobah, doesn't give up on the Force. He is merely masked by the amount of dark side forces and evil that's on that planet, which essentially shrouds his presence. It's like a cloaking mechanism. Obi-Wan goes to Tatooine, doesn't cloak or doesn't have anything to really shroud his Force usage away, so he just abandons it. He kind of stopped using it, but he's there to watch over Luke. Beyond that, you've got Luke Skywalker, who then exiles to Ahch-To, right? Just way off, and his protection is that he's way off even the star charts. They can't even find him. The map isn't there. They don't even know where the hell he is. Mace, it seems like this is something that they've all kind of spoken about. This is kind of a contingency plan where when everything goes wrong, this is what you do. Like, here are your marching orders. If we lose the council, if we lose the Senate, if we lose Coruscant, this is the move. It's hide, wait, and trust the Force. Like, we'll find each other somehow. I wouldn't be surprised if he's on some random outer rim planet, God knows what. Like you said, maybe he completely cut himself off. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's found. And like you said, he thinks that the Empire's still around, or he doesn't know how things went because it took him 6 months to a year to find where he needs to be. He kept tabs on things, and eventually he loses contact, with.
Well, and even further, if you're talking about, let's say he doesn't go into complete exile right away. You're right. Yoda went and masked himself, and Obi-Wan kind of is masking himself, right? So even if he is trying to reach out through the Force, he's not finding his old friends either. He might think he's truly cut off.
And
I think there's a lot there.
And the only reason I don't want him to be around again is because it's happened so many times, and I'm still anticipating for Cad Bane to come back, and I think that that's a good thing because I think Cad Bane should have been like this big bad, not on Thrawn levels, but if you're doing a Tatooine centric kind of Mandalorian Boba Fett arc, he should have been a bigger player in it. So I hope he's back. But you're right. The only reason I don't want him back, as cool as he is and as plausible as it may be, is that it's just been done to death. And I just some characters need to stay dead, and I don't It's not worth it, I think. It's definitely not worth it. Now, on the other hand, do I believe that Darth Maul is another leader? I think that we are going to get a bunch of Darth Mauls. I just don't think that Darth Maul is the leader. That's just...
Yeah, I think it would be weird as a leader. But, that's...
I feel like...
It's not out of the realm of possibility, I guess. It's not... But it does feel weird just because the leaders have been very era-centric. Yes, there are other, units and references to the other eras, but all of the leader choices for this first set do feel like they are centered around that spark of rebellion, like what the set is named. And I would be surprised if he was a leader.
We shall see. Well, thank you, Jason Rodney, again, for that submission. I think you have one more, right?
We have another official... We have an official one. So this comes from a good friend of ours named Jordan Kennedy. And we were having a discussion via text, and he was asking about what we call our listeners, right? Because a lot of, whether it's creators or shows or whatever, sometimes they have a nickname for their fans. Essentially, he was asking the equivalent of what is the cave Swifties, if you will. And he'd even thrown out some examples. He said he started with pre-ordered a couple of cases of Star Wars Unlimited. So first of all, to me, that's the absolute kindest compliment that you can give me ever, is that you got into a game because of me, because that means that I made you excited about the things I love. So thank you there. But then he says, and am officially a Wonka radio Wookiee. That's what he started with.
Wonka? The chocolate maker?
Yes. Wonka radio Wookiee. This was the text. I know I'm putting you on blast right now, Jordan, but that's what you sent me. And then he says, that's what I'm calling your fans. And so I said, well, we're in the middle of a small kind of rebranding thing. So I don't know exactly what we're going to call things, but no spoilers or whatever. And then he comes with, well, what are fans called now? I gotta refind my identity. And he said, you're a Hoth jockey, and where are your Hoth hounds? And then I said, well, no spoilers, but we're getting a new name for the mascot, but we've never officially talked about what we'll call our listeners. And so then he said, well, consider this an official Ice Cave Radio listener question. What is the name that you have for your listeners? And then he's trying to throw it in. He goes, or, you can call it a Hothhound question if you want, but no. It's definitely not Hothhound.
It's not a Hothhound
It's too hard
question.
to say. I'm slurring my words. I sound like I've been drinking too much green milk when I say that.
I would love to hear the Quebecers that I grew up with pronounce Hothhound, because it would not work out. Okay, so as a content creator for many years, same with you, streamer, I've seen a lot of people, like you mentioned, that have names for the people who watch them. I tried it, and it just never felt right, because I just call people friends. That's just the way it is. I say friend of the show or this or that, and that's just the way it was. However, for this, people refer to us as like the Wampas, and I think that that's just a big family of Wampas. I think that for Ice Cave Radio, if you're a fan and a listener of Ice Cave's Radio, you're part of the Wampa crew. You are one of the Wampas in the Ice Cave with us, having a good time.
Or whatever abominable snow creature you want to be. If you want to be a Yeti, sure. You want to be the abominable Swoo Man, have at it.
Like
you don't even have to be a furry one. If you want to be a Minoc or something, like you can
be a hairless Wampa if you want in the Ice Cave Radio. However, that's the way I think about it. Like when I say something like, if I would refer to it, it'd be like, oh, we've got a giveaway for all the Wampas who are listening and stuff like that. Like that's just kind of, it's this very simple way. And it's not like we're infringing on anything. We're just calling some people some really cool creatures from the Star Wars universe. I think that, maybe this is a question for our listeners, for the Wampas out there. What do you want to be referred to as? You're already our friends. You're already, great people and great supporters.
Except for you, and you know who you are if you're listening.
For sure, specifically you.
Definitely you.
But for everyone else, do you like being referred to as Wampas? Do you want something else? Put your suggestions out there in the chat, because Ice Cave Radio has a really cool crew of people who support us, and we are ever thankful, especially from you, Jordan Kennedy. So if you want to get in touch with us, Charmer, read out your phone number real quick so people can text you their questions.
Sure.
I got it. Let me just read it out real quick.
Yeah, hold on. I just got to remember what my Canadian area code is.
Stop it. Don't you dare. For the record, friends, please do not text us, but we are very, very open. You can email us at icecaveradio@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at icecaveradio. Myself at Watchflake, or my doofus counterpart here is at thatcharm3r. And then you can get in touch with us. It has been a great, great time to be back. And I know that there is some cool stuff happening very freaking soon that we cannot wait to tell you about.
Like super soon.
Very soon.
But very excited.
I have to go to Hartford first.
Yeah.
I got to go to Hartford first.
I have to be sad about not going to Hartford.
I will win that event for you.
I hope you do. I really do.
I will win that event.
For what it's worth, if people want to know exactly how exciting this other thing is, the reason I'm not going to Hartford is because I only have so many vacation days, and I had to rebuild them after going to a lot of events at the end of last year, and I chose to use them for this other event instead of going to Hartford. That's how much it means to me.
I agree. All right, friends. I think that pretty much does it for episode number 32 of the show, which is now called Ice Cave Radio. Same show, same goons, different title. Less mouse hate. We're good. Charmer, would you like to set us up while I remind people? Please follow along. Hit the subscribe button, 5 stars, comment, all that stuff. It's free. It helps us out. Goes miles. Charmer, walk us out of this party.
May the Force be with you.